Millionaire husband gave his pregnant wife divorce papers as a birthday gift. He never expected what happened next. The millionaire placed a velvet box beside his 7-month pregnant wife's birthday cake and told her to open it in front of everyone. Claire Bennett expected jewelry. Instead, she found divorce papers, a silver pen, and a settlement Grant believed she would sign before she had time to think. He had money, lawyers, a carefully planned audience, and one fatal assumption: that the woman he had pushed out of his business life had forgotten how to read numbers. Stay with Claire to the end, because the paper meant to make her powerless became the first clue to what Grant was trying to hide. If stories about betrayal, dignity, and hard-earned second chances speak to you, subscribe and tell us what you would have done in her place. Now listen closely. The piano stopped before Claire even touched the pen. One broken note hung beneath the crystal chandeliers of the private dining room, while 30 candles flickered beside Claire's untouched birthday cake. Manhattan glittered 47 floors below the windows. 20 guests sat around the long table with champagne glasses suspended halfway to their mouths. In front of Claire rested a black velvet box that looked as if it should have contained jewelry. Her husband, Grant Bennett, had placed it there with both hands and a smile so calm that Claire almost believed, for one foolish second, that he had remembered who they used to be. She was 7 months pregnant. One hand was already resting beneath the curve of her pale blue maternity dress when Grant said, "Happy birthday, Claire. Open it." Grant was 38, handsome in the polished way business magazines liked. Dark hair, steel gray eyes, a midnight suit that fit him perfectly. Founder and chief executive of Bennett Meridian Holdings. Millionaire. Husband of 6 years. Father of the daughter moving beneath Claire's ribs. Claire lifted the lid. There was no necklace. There was a silver fountain pen and a cream packet of legal papers. The first page read, "Proposed Marital Settlement Agreement." Behind it was a copy of a divorce complaint Grant's attorneys had prepared for filing. Claire forgot how to breathe. Someone near the window whispered, "Oh my God." Grant did not look embarrassed. He looked relieved. "I wanted to handle this respectfully," he said. Claire looked around the room. His mother was there. 2 members of Bennett Meridian's board were there. Several company executives were there. Her closest friend had been invited. And 3 seats behind Grant stood Vanessa Cole, Bennett Meridian's communications director, wearing a silver dress and a carefully neutral expression. "At my birthday dinner?" Claire asked. Grant lowered his voice as if she were the one creating the scene. "There is no reason for this to become ugly." Claire looked back at the packet. Housing, temporary support, property proposals, confidentiality, a section discussing future parenting arrangements after the baby was born. Nothing in the packet was a final court order. Nothing on those pages could decide custody merely because Grant wanted it to. But he had written the future as if the negotiation were already over. Then he slid the silver pen toward her. "You will be comfortable," he said. "I have made sure of that." Claire's fingers trembled as she turned another page. Before marriage, she had worked in corporate auditing. Numbers had once been the language she trusted most. Grant knew that. Years earlier, when Bennett Meridian was still fighting to survive, Claire had rebuilt its internal controls after a serious compliance review. She had designed alerts for unusual transfers, duplicate vendors, executive overrides, and related party transactions. Grant used to tell investors that Claire could find a missing dollar in a hurricane. Later, when the company became successful, the compliment disappeared. "You do not need to work anymore," Grant had said. Then, "Let the finance team handle it." Then, "You are pregnant. You do not need the stress." Now Claire reached a schedule attached to the proposed settlement. It listed Grant's disclosed ownership interests and several business-related assets that his lawyers apparently intended to use as a basis for negotiation. Her eyes stopped on one line. Crownwell Strategic Consulting, LLC. Value. Nominal. Claire stared at the name. She had seen it 3 days earlier. Grant leaned forward. "Just sign the acknowledgement that you received the proposal. We can finish the rest through the attorneys." Claire lifted her eyes. "Why is Crownwell listed as nominal?" His expression did not move. Vanessa's did. Only for a second. Claire saw it. Grant's smile tightened. "It is a vendor relationship. Nothing important." Claire looked at Vanessa, then back at the paper. The baby kicked hard beneath her ribs. Grant mistook Claire's silence for fear. "You do not have to make decisions tonight," he said, now speaking loudly enough for the room to hear. "I am trying to make this easier for you." Claire picked up the silver pen. Grant relaxed. Vanessa looked down. Claire did not sign. She placed the pen directly beneath the words Crownwell Strategic Consulting LLC and took out her phone. "What are you doing?" Grant asked. "Reading. You do not need to photograph the proposal. I want a copy of what you gave me." His jaw tightened. Claire photographed every page. Then she closed the packet, placed it back inside the velvet box, and stood carefully. Grant leaned toward her. "Do not embarrass yourself." The sentence hurt more than the divorce papers. Not because Claire believed him, because 3 days earlier, she might have. She lifted the box. "I am not signing anything tonight." Grant's voice dropped. "Without me, you have no idea what your life costs." Claire looked at the man she had once loved enough to reorganize her entire life around. Then she looked at Vanessa. "No," Claire said quietly, "but I still know what numbers cost." She walked toward the elevator. Nobody stopped her. The doors closed. Only then did her hands begin to shake. Claire pressed one palm against the cool elevator wall. One tear slipped down her cheek. She hated that Grant still had the power to hurt her. She hated that Vanessa had watched. She hated that 20 people had seen the moment her marriage became paperwork. Then her phone vibrated. An old automated alert appeared on the screen. Bennett Meridian Control Notice. Claire stared. The system should not have been sending her anything. Her administrative role had supposedly been removed years earlier. Yet a legacy compliance account still forwarded high-level alerts to the email address she had created when the company had fewer than 30 employees. The message contained no secret files, no stolen password, just an automated notification generated by the controls Claire herself had once designed. Related party review flag. Vendor, Crownwell Strategic Consulting LLC. Executive authorization recorded. Amount pending internal review for $1,800,000. Claire read the number twice. Then she looked down at the velvet box in her hand. Grant had just described Crownwell as unimportant. $4.8 million was not unimportant. And suddenly the cruelest birthday gift of Claire Bennett's life had given her something Grant never intended. A question. 3 days earlier, Claire had still been trying to save her marriage. Tuesday morning had begun with rain running down the penthouse windows and Grant's side of the bed, already cold. Claire stood in the kitchen wearing slippers and one of his old shirts over her maternity leggings. She had barely slept. Their daughter had been active most of the night, kicking every time Claire found a comfortable position. Grant had left a text. Early board meeting. Do not wait for dinner. No heart. No love you. No mention of Friday, Claire's 30th birthday. She told herself he was busy. She had told herself that for months. The distance had arrived slowly. Late meetings. A second phone he claimed was for investors. Calls taken on the balcony. The unfamiliar perfume on his jacket once, then again. Vanessa's name appearing on his screen at midnight. Claire had never found proof of an affair. She had found something worse for a woman who once trusted facts. 100 details that refused to become one answer. That morning, her old compliance email had received its first alert in nearly 2 years. Crownwell Strategic Consulting. An executive override had been used on a payment authorization. Claire did not open internal corporate records she was no longer authorized to access. She did not need to. The alert itself contained the same metadata all high-risk notices had always contained. Vendor name, amount bracket, authorization level, and a reference number for the company's current finance team. She almost deleted it. Then she noticed the time. 2:13 a.m. Grant had not been home at 2:13 a.m. He had told her he was preparing for an investor presentation. At breakfast, Claire searched public records for Crownwell. The company existed. Barely. It had been formed less than a year earlier. No meaningful website. No public staff page. A mailing address connected to a corporate registration service. Nothing proved wrongdoing. Nothing proved anything. But auditors did not begin with conclusions. They began with inconsistencies. That afternoon, Grant returned to the penthouse unexpectedly. Claire was standing near the kitchen island with a prenatal appointment folder open in front of her. Grant stopped when he saw her. "You are home early," she said. "So are you." Claire stared at him. "I live here." For the first time in weeks, something almost like shame crossed his face. He recovered quickly and set his phone on the counter. It lit up. Vanessa Cole. He turned it over. Too late. Claire said nothing. Grant loosened his tie. "Friday night is handled, by the way. My birthday. The private room at Levant. 8 o'clock. Claire blinked. You planned a dinner? He had ignored her previous 2 birthdays until his assistant reminded him. Grant smiled. I thought you deserved something memorable. The words should have warmed her. Instead, Claire felt cold. That night, after Grant fell asleep in the guest room, another compliance notice arrived. Crownwell again. This time the amount was smaller. $420,000. The next morning, Claire called Rachel Monroe, an attorney she had known before marriage. Rachel handled business litigation and financial issues in matrimonial disputes. She did not promise Claire a dramatic victory. She did not tell her Grant was committing a crime. She asked the questions Claire needed. Do you have authorized access to his current company systems? No. Then do not go looking inside them. Claire nodded, even though Rachel could not see her over the phone. What do you legally have? Rachel asked. Joint tax returns, mortgage applications, old company documents from when I worked there. The compliance alerts coming to my account. Our household financial records. Good. Bring only what you are entitled to possess. 2 hours later, Claire sat in Rachel's office with a glass of water in both hands. Rachel reviewed the materials slowly. She found nothing cinematic. No secret confession. No hidden vault. What she found was a pattern of questions. Grant's personal financial statements used for a recent mortgage renewal showed a larger ownership interest in Bennett Meridian than the schedule attached to an old draft estate plan Claire had at home. Several household tax documents reflected pass-through income from entities Claire did not recognize. Crownwell was not listed on their joint returns because it was not theirs, at least not on paper. Rachel looked at the automated alert. Who controls Crownwell? I do not know. Do not guess. Claire swallowed. Vanessa might. Why? Claire explained the perfume. The midnight calls. The name on the phone. Rachel shook her head. That is marriage evidence, not business evidence. The distinction stung, but Claire appreciated it. What do I do? Nothing reckless. If Grant files, we respond properly. If he gives you a settlement, you do not sign it under pressure. We ask for full financial disclosure. New York matrimonial cases require serious transparency about finances. And once a case begins, there are automatic restrictions that can affect the handling of assets outside ordinary business. Claire looked down at her belly. Can he take my baby because I have been emotional? Rachel's face changed immediately. Claire, pregnancy is not a custody disqualification. No private settlement clause decides what a court will do simply because Grant writes it down. Parenting decisions are based on the child's best interests. Your health, his health, caregiving, safety, work schedules, cooperation, all of it matters. Do not let a draft scare you into believing the future is already decided. Claire breathed for what felt like the first time in days. Then Rachel asked, why do you think he is planning a settlement? Claire did not answer. Her phone vibrated. A message from Grant. Friday will change everything. Claire turned the screen toward Rachel. Rachel read it once. Then Friday, she said, you read everything. That was exactly what Claire did. At the birthday dinner, Grant's mistake was not giving her divorce papers. His mistake was believing humiliation would make her stop thinking. The morning after the party, Claire sat in Rachel's office with the velvet box on the conference table between them. Rachel examined the packet Grant had given her. This is a proposed agreement, she said. And this is a copy of a complaint his attorneys appear prepared to file. You were not formally served just because your husband handed you a birthday box in a restaurant. Claire almost laughed at the absurdity of needing that sentence explained. Rachel continued. Do not sign acknowledgments you do not understand. We will respond through counsel. Claire showed her the Crownwell alert from the elevator. $4.8 million. Rachel's eyebrows rose, but her voice remained measured. This does not prove he moved personal marital money. Bennett Meridian is a corporation. Corporate funds are not automatically your husband's personal assets. I know. But if the payment affects the value of his ownership, involves a related party, or reflects money being diverted improperly, it may matter in more than one place. Claire looked at the proposed settlement schedule. He called Crownwell nominal. Then we ask what Crownwell is. By noon, Rachel sent Grant's attorney a letter declining the proposal, preserving Claire's rights, requesting that future communications go through counsel, and identifying categories of financial information that would need to be disclosed if the divorce proceeded. She did not threaten Bennett Meridian. She did not call reporters. She did not accuse Grant of fraud. She asked for documents. That frightened Grant more than accusations would have. He called Claire 14 times. She answered once. "Where are you?" he demanded. "With my attorney." Silence. "You hired someone already? You gave me a settlement at my birthday dinner. I was trying to avoid a long fight. You invited 20 people. That was for you." Claire closed her eyes. "For you." How easily control borrowed the language of care. Grant softened his voice. "Come home. We can fix this before attorneys make it worse." Claire looked at Rachel, who said nothing. "No," Claire replied. "Your attorney can call mine." Grant's breathing changed. "Vanessa is not what you think." Claire had not mentioned Vanessa. Her eyes opened. "Goodbye, Grant." She ended the call. Rachel looked at her. That was interesting. Claire's hands were cold. Very. Over the next 2 weeks, the divorce action was filed and properly served through the legal process. The paperwork included the notices and restrictions that accompanied a New York matrimonial case. Rachel made sure Claire understood what mattered and what did not. Grant could not simply dictate custody. Claire could not simply seize company money. Neither side could treat the marital estate as if the other person did not exist. Disclosure began, and facts arrived more slowly than drama usually does. Crownwell Strategic Consulting was controlled by Vanessa Cole. That alone did not prove misconduct. A company could hire a business owned by an executive. But Bennett Meridian's internal records, produced through proper channels in related corporate review and later obtained through lawful discovery, showed that Crownwell had received millions in strategic communications and reputation consulting fees with unusually thin supporting work product. More troubling, Grant had personally approved exceptions to normal vendor review procedures. Claire sat beside Rachel looking at the records. "I built the rule he bypassed," she whispered. Rachel nodded. "And now the current auditors will decide whether he had a legitimate reason." The company's independent audit committee had begun asking its own questions after compliance staff noticed the same pattern. Claire did not cause that review by stealing records or threatening the company. The controls already existed. Grant had simply assumed success made him larger than them. Then another disclosure arrived. An email from Grant to the company's finance chief discussing a planned reduction in certain discretionary consulting expenses after the divorce settled. Another showed Vanessa asking whether Crownwell invoices should be accelerated before quarter end. Still no melodramatic confession. No email saying hide money from Claire. Reality was quieter, but the timing was difficult to ignore. Rachel also found that the valuation Grant's settlement proposal used for his Bennett Meridian ownership relied on an older internal number that did not reflect a more recent financing round. That did not mean Claire owned half the company. It did mean she had been asked to negotiate from a number that appeared incomplete. When Rachel raised the issue, Grant's attorneys insisted the proposal had been preliminary. Rachel replied, "Then there should be no objection to current disclosure." There was an objection. That was when the story changed. Not online. Not in a million-view video. In a conference room. For weeks after Claire's birthday, the parties appeared for a preliminary matrimonial conference. Claire was nearly 8 months pregnant. She wore a navy maternity dress and flat shoes because her ankles had begun swelling by noon. Grant sat across the room with 2 attorneys and the same controlled expression he had worn at her birthday dinner. The judge did not care about the restaurant drama. The judge cared about the issues before the court: financial disclosure, temporary arrangements, preservation of disputed property interests, and a schedule for resolving the case. Rachel did not ask the court to award Claire Bennett Meridian. She did not ask for Grant to be punished because he was cruel. She asked for complete, current financial information and appropriate safeguards while the case proceeded. Grant's attorney argued that corporate records were being pulled into a private divorce unnecessarily. Rachel responded carefully. "We are not asking the court to operate the company. We are asking for accurate information necessary to value Mr. Bennett's interests and to understand transactions that may affect that valuation." The judge looked at Grant's counsel. "Then produce what is required and address legitimate confidentiality concerns with an appropriate protective arrangement." Simple. Procedural. Powerful. Then the subject of parenting came up. Grant's draft proposal had suggested that Claire's emotional volatility during pregnancy made him better suited for greater decision-making authority after the baby's birth. Rachel did not dramatize it. She simply said, "No child has been born yet. My client has maintained her prenatal care, has no finding of parental unfitness, and intends to support an appropriate relationship between the child and both parents if safe and consistent with the child's best interests. The judge looked at Grant's attorney. Future parenting arrangements are not established by labeling ordinary marital distress as instability. Bring evidence, not adjectives. Claire lowered her eyes. For months, Grant had used her tears as proof that she was weak. For the first time, someone in authority treated them as what they were. Human. Outside court, Grant caught up to Claire near the elevator. "Are you happy now?" he asked. Claire looked at him. No, the answer surprised him. "I did not want this. You are tearing apart everything I built." Claire almost laughed. Years ago, it had been everything we built. She said, "Your audit committee is asking about Crownwell because of your approvals. My attorney is asking about disclosure because of your settlement proposal. Those are different things." Grant stared at her. "You always did love making things sound simple." "No," Claire said. "I learned to separate things that people want confused." The elevator opened. She stepped inside. 3 days later, Bennett Meridian announced that Grant would temporarily step back from certain executive decisions while the independent audit committee reviewed related party vendor approvals. The company did not collapse. Employees did not lose their jobs. Vanessa took a leave of absence. Crownwell's contracts were suspended pending review. Grant remained wealthy. He remained Claire's husband until the divorce was final, and he remained the father of their unborn child. But he no longer controlled every room simply by entering it. The internal review eventually found that several Crownwell invoices lacked sufficient documentation and that Grant had bypassed procedures designed to identify conflicts. Some payments were recovered or offset. The board imposed consequences under company policy and negotiated Grant's departure from the chief executive role months later. The divorce moved more slowly, as real divorces often do. Claire gave birth to Sophie on a rainy morning in early spring. Grant arrived at the hospital after Rachel and Claire's family had already been there for hours. He stood in the doorway, looking smaller than Claire remembered. "Can I see her?" he asked. Claire looked down at the sleeping baby against her chest. Her first instinct was anger. Then she remembered what she had told Rachel from the beginning. Sophie would not become a weapon. "You can," Claire said. "Wash your hands." Grant did. He held his daughter for 7 minutes. He cried once. Claire looked away. Whatever he had done to her, Sophie's relationship with her father would be decided by safety, consistency, and what was best for Sophie, not by Claire's need to punish him. Before the case reached that point, Claire learned that the hardest part of leaving was not the courtroom. It was the ordinary hours afterward. She stayed for several weeks in Rachel's guest apartment above a quiet brownstone owned by Rachel's aunt. The rooms were smaller than the penthouse, the radiator clicked at night, and the kitchen window looked directly into another brick wall. Claire slept better there than she had in months. She also cried there more than she expected. Freedom did not erase grief. It simply gave grief a place where it no longer had to hide. Grant sent flowers the first week. Claire returned them. He sent a handwritten letter the second week. She read the first paragraph, folded it, and gave it to Rachel for the file. The third week, he asked to meet without attorneys. Rachel advised against discussing settlement terms privately, but Claire agreed to a brief conversation in the lobby of her building because there was something she needed to hear for herself. Grant arrived without a driver. That alone unsettled her. For years, every meeting had been scheduled by someone else, every table reserved, every inconvenience removed before he encountered it. Now he stood beside a potted plant in a wool coat, looking like an ordinary man who had slept badly. "I never wanted this to become public," he said. "It did not become public because of me. The board is talking about removing me. That is between you and the board. The divorce triggered all of this." Claire shook her head. "No, the invoices triggered the audit. Your settlement triggered questions about your valuation. My pregnancy did not create your decisions." Grant looked toward the glass doors. "Vanessa is cooperating with the committee." Claire felt the old pain move through her, but it no longer controlled her breathing. "Were you having an affair with her?" Grant looked at her. For once he did not have a prepared answer. "Yes." The word was almost quiet enough to miss. Claire had imagined that confession for months. She had expected rage, relief, maybe the strange satisfaction of finally being proven right. Instead, she felt tired. How long? 8 months. Claire counted backward automatically. 8 months placed the beginning before she knew she was pregnant. before Grant had knelt beside the bathroom sink holding the positive test in both hands and crying. Before he had kissed her stomach and promised that their daughter would never doubt how wanted she was. Claire looked away. Grant stepped closer. It ended. That does not help. I know. No, Claire said. You know it does not fix the divorce. That is different from understanding what it did to me. Grant's face tightened. I made mistakes. You made plans. He did not answer. Claire thought about the birthday dinner and realized that this was the first time since then that Grant had no audience. No board members. No Vanessa. No guests waiting to see who would cry first. Just two people standing beneath fluorescent lobby lights with a marriage between them that no amount of money could make elegant. Why my birthday? She asked. Grant rubbed a hand over his jaw. My lawyer wanted the proposal delivered before the next round of financial disclosures and before the board approved a restructuring. I thought if you saw that I was offering support, you would agree quickly. That is the business answer. He looked at her. I asked why my birthday. Grant's eyes lowered. Because you do not like scenes. There it was. Not as ugly as the sentence Claire had imagined. Worse because it was so simple. You thought I would be too embarrassed to say no. I thought you would want to keep things calm. Claire nodded slowly. You knew me. Grant's expression softened, perhaps thinking she was remembering love. That is what made it cruel, she finished. She walked away before he could answer. The formal financial process continued. Claire learned how much easier facts became when professionals separated them from emotion. A neutral valuation expert reviewed Grant's Bennett Meridian interest. The expert did not use the number Grant preferred or the number Claire feared. The analysis considered the company's actual capital structure, restrictions on Grant's shares, recent financing, debt, and other factors. The final value was complicated, not cinematic. Rachel explained every assumption. Claire asked questions until she understood them. Crownwell was treated separately. Bennett Meridian's audit committee concluded that Grant had failed to follow conflict review procedures and that some services had not been adequately supported. The board negotiated repayment and offsets related to certain charges. There was no instant criminal spectacle waiting outside the courtroom and no television helicopter over the building. There were lawyers, auditors, insurance carriers, board minutes, revised controls, and consequences that arrived one document at a time. Vanessa resigned. Claire never spoke to her. She considered it once, then decided she did not need another woman to explain Grant to her. At a settlement conference several months after Sophie was born, Grant finally sat across from Claire without pretending his first proposal had been generous. The room contained only attorneys, water bottles, calculators, and a mediator who had heard too many divorces to be impressed by wealth. They discussed property, support, legal fees, and parenting. When Grant's lawyer tried to frame the penthouse as proof that Claire had enjoyed an unusually high standard of living, Claire almost smiled. The apartment had once seemed like the center of her life. Now it was simply an asset with a number attached. The parenting discussion mattered more. Grant wanted broad flexibility because of his travel schedule. Claire wanted predictability for Sophie. The mediator reminded both of them that their daughter's routine was not a punishment or a reward. They built a schedule around actual availability, not pride. Grant agreed to advance notice for travel. Claire agreed to reasonable additional time when it did not disrupt Sophie's needs. Major decisions would be handled under the final parenting terms rather than through threats made during the marriage. At one point, Grant looked directly at Claire and said, I want her to know me. Claire believed him. That did not erase anything, but it mattered. Then be someone she can rely on, she said. Grant nodded. That was as close to forgiveness as the room came. Claire did not need an apology powerful enough to restore the marriage. She needed an agreement clear enough to end it. Months later, the divorce ended through negotiated terms after full disclosure. Claire received a fair share of marital property, appropriate support, and a parenting arrangement designed around Sophie's needs and both parents' actual schedules. Grant did not lose every dollar. Claire did not receive a magical fortune. The court did not hand her his company. What she received mattered more because it was real. Security, information, boundaries. A future she had agreed to instead of one handed to her inside a birthday box. The day Claire signed the final divorce documents, she did not feel triumphant. She sat in Rachel's office for several minutes after everyone else had left, listening to the hum of the air conditioner and watching traffic move below the window. The papers did not erase 6 years. They did not return the mornings when Grant made coffee before she woke, or the first apartment where they ate takeout on moving boxes, or the night they learned Sophie existed. A marriage could end for good reasons and still leave good memories behind. That was the part nobody put into dramatic stories. Claire cried once, quietly, then wiped her face. Rachel handed her the signed copy and asked whether she wanted to keep the velvet birthday box. Claire looked at it for a long moment. She had carried it through lawyers' offices, conferences, and months of negotiation because it had become evidence of the night everything changed. Now it was only a box. "No," Claire said. "I have what I need." She left it behind. Outside, the air smelled like rain. Claire walked 3 blocks before calling the nonprofit that had offered her part-time audit work. She had delayed accepting because she was afraid motherhood and litigation had taken too much from her concentration. The director answered on the second ring. "Claire." "Yes," she said. "If the position is still open, I would like to talk about starting." There was a brief pause, then a warm laugh. "We were hoping you would call." Claire stood beneath a gray New York sky with Sophie's stroller beside her and felt something small but unmistakable return. Not revenge, not victory, momentum. She did not know exactly what the next year would look like. She only knew that, for the first time in years, uncertainty no longer felt like a threat. It felt like space. 1 year after that night, Claire turned 31 in a modest Brooklyn brownstone with sunlight across the kitchen floor and pink frosting on Sophie's hands. Rachel arrived carrying coffee and a small black box. Claire stopped when she saw it. Rachel immediately raised both hands. "It is not legal paperwork." Claire laughed. A real laugh. "Bad packaging choice. I realized that after I bought it." Claire opened the box. Inside was a fountain pen. Not silver. Black lacquer, simple and elegant. Rachel smiled. "For signing better things." On the table beside Claire sat an employment agreement from a nonprofit financial accountability organization. They had offered her a senior audit role with a flexible schedule. The work involved building controls for organizations that had grown faster than their systems could handle. The kind of work Claire once believed she had left forever. She had read every page twice. Sophie slapped both hands against her high-chair tray and squealed. Claire picked up the pen. Her phone vibrated. "Grant, happy birthday. I will pick Sophie up at 4. I hope you have a good day." Claire read it. No anger arrived. No longing either. She typed, "Thank you. Her bag will be ready." Then she placed the phone face down. Rachel nodded toward the employment agreement. "Ready?" Claire looked at the signature line. For 1 second, she saw the restaurant again. Chandeliers. Champagne. Vanessa's silver dress. Grant pushing a pen toward her and saying she had no idea what life cost without him. He had been right about one thing. Claire had not known. She had not known how much fear cost. She had not known how expensive silence could become. And she had not known how peaceful an ordinary kitchen could feel after years inside a beautiful home where every question seemed dangerous. Claire signed. Claire Bennett. Her hand did not shake. Sophie laughed and threw a piece of cake onto the floor. Rachel groaned. Claire laughed again. A year earlier, a millionaire husband had given his 7-month pregnant wife divorce papers as a birthday gift because he believed the public humiliation would make her smaller, quieter, and easier to control. Grant Bennett never expected what happened next. He never expected Claire to read the page he wanted her to skip. He never expected the old control she had built to outlast his confidence. And he never expected the woman he told could not survive without him to discover that surviving him was not the victory. Living without fear was.